What are the headlines that you would pull out here?
Emily, as you mentioned, of course, the big magic word there is direct-to-consumer, is streaming. And this is really a transformational year, a year of transition where they're going to be making all these investments for their big product, the Disney Plus service, which they're going to launch later in calendar 2019. But I think as far as fiscal 1Q results go, it was a pretty solid print. The theme parks there were a real standout. It looks like all of their investments are really paying off. They had a recent price hike. There was 10% adjusted operating income growth in that segment. And then again, the media network segment also holding up pretty well. But the company management definitely bracing us for losses in the direct-to-consumer segment.
Roger, what's your take on what's happening in the streaming wars? These companies like Netflix and Disney spending billions and billions of dollars on original content, all to have that direct and exclusive relationship with the consumer.
I mean, it's a great time to be a consumer, right, Emily? I mean, there is so much fantastic content being produced right now. And what's interesting is how willing consumers have been to unbundle their video while maintaining lots of different relationships. There was an article of faith that the cable model worked in part because if you broke it up into pieces, the friction would cause people not to spend as much money. And I don't think that's actually the case so far. And I don't want to pretend like I know how this is going to turn out. I do think that this massive spending on original content is going to run out of gas somewhere. That is, at some point, you'll hit saturation of how much can really drive subscriptions and how much penetration you can get for each platform. But we're not there yet. And until then, I think consumers are the biggest winners out of all of this. You know, it's hard for me to imagine Disney not being successful because of their control of unique content targeting pretty much every bracket age-wise, but especially little kids. And at the same time, you know, they're coming at this much later than obviously Netflix and Amazon and a bunch of others who are not going anywhere. So, you know, consumer wins.
With the launch of Disney Plus, Disney also pulling its content from Netflix. Geetha, what do we know about what we'll actually see on Disney Plus?
Yes, so Disney Plus, it's actually going to be a pretty slow ramp up in terms of content. They are going to have a very deep library of their own IP, of the Fox IP. They're going to have all the Marvel, Pixar, the Star Wars content. And what they're actually doing this year is they're pulling their content, as you mentioned, off of Netflix. That is going to result in some loss of licensing revenue. And along with all of the films that, so Captain Marvel, which they release in March, is actually going to be the first film that's going to be on their service, Disney Plus service, so they're going to see some loss of licensing revenue from Netflix in addition to the investments.
Roger, we've heard polarizing views on Netflix. Some people think it'll hold on to the crown, will remain the streaming king or queen, if you will. But others saying that Netflix could become the AOL of OTT. What do you think?
I haven't a clue, but I will tell you this. Betting against Reed Hastings has been a terrible thing to do. And there have been several times in the history of Netflix that I just didn't get it. And I learned my lesson. I'm basically going to assume that he'll pull it off. The thing I would observe is that Netflix has a data advantage. They really have a sense of customer preferences that has to be economically game-breaking compared to Disney and others. Disney will have a content advantage because the Pixar library, the old Disney children's stuff, obviously the Marvel line and some of the Fox stuff, they're going to give them a very full set. And because of the way Disney prices things in the purchase market, I think that there is a lot of demand for a lot of streaming, particularly of the Pixar and Disney animation. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but I would definitely not bet against Netflix. And if the stock gets creamed, that will almost certainly, from my perspective, be a buying opportunity.